Okay, so this is another installment of Jewish Heroes, and today we're going to be learning about two very distinct personalities. Both, I would say, are separate from the world, very unworldly, very above the earth kind of people. One's a Kabbalist, and one perhaps was a hidden Kabbalist. One is the Ramak, Moshe Cordovero, that he is more famous because he's buried right next to the Arizal. Okay, so anybody who's been in Tzfat, so if you go to the kever of the Ari, so literally right next to him is the Ramak of Moshe Cordovero. The truth is that it's not that he's buried next to the Arizal, but rather that the Arizal is buried next to him, because he actually passed away before the Arizal. He was actually, in some ways, we'll get to this, he's considered the Rebbe of the Arizal. Okay, so he's the first, and the second is much later, about 13 years ago, Rav Yashiv Shalom Yashiv. So he passed away on Chav Ches. The Ramak is Chav Gimel. That was today. Today, Wednesday, was the Yahrzeit of the Ramak, and that's Chav Gimel Tammuz. And Sunday night is the Yahrzeit of Rav Yashiv, and that's Chav Chet. Okay, so let's start with the Ramak. Okay, the Ramak, we said, is a Moshe Cordovero. What is his place in Jewish history? He is, you could say, one of the fathers of Kabbalah. Okay, he wrote a very meaningful sefer on Kabbalah called Pardes Yimonim. He also wrote a sefer called Or HaYashar, which is a sefer on the Zohar, which is the one of a kind, in the sense that it's a huge essay on the entire Zohar. There's something not normal about him. His entire that he wrote in a matter of 22 years, he wrote 35 different books, and that one of them being this, that it's like 15 volumes, and it's really unreal how much he was able to write. The Arizal was not like this at all. The Arizal didn't write a word. The Arizal, he was so in the higher worlds that he just spoke. The Vilna Gaon had the same issue, actually, that he couldn't write. He would start writing, and his mind would just go so fast that he wasn't able to keep up with himself. Right? And I don't know if in classes like this, but in general, I talk very quickly. So I forget who, somebody was explaining to me that the reason why I talk so quickly is because I'm thinking quickly, so I'm trying to keep up with me. So with writing, it was just impossible. The Arizal and the Gra, so they have very, very little things that he wrote because they just weren't able to. And the Ramak had this talent that he was able to just write very quickly, and he even said about himself, it doesn't make sense how he's able to write so many things. It's just he would just start writing, and it would just come out. So what do we know about what was the legacy of the Ramak? So what's really interesting is this: everything in the Ramak is basically unlearned. He was the one that brought Kabbalah into the masses in a written form, and yet he gets no credit. Why doesn't he get any credit? Because this is a tradition from the Vilna Gaon. Rav Chaim from Volozhin said in the name of the Vilna Gaon that where the Kabbalah of the Ramak ends, that's where the Kabbalah of the Ari begins. Okay, so shalom. So basically, it's different ways to understand Kabbalah, and the way of the Ari was, so to speak, accepted. Okay, so everything from the Ramak is basically just ignored and not learned, and yet everything sort of comes from him. So what's the story behind this? So the Ramak himself told his students before he passed away that that after I pass away, so there's going to be another great rabbi that's going to teach another form of Kabbalah, and you're going to think that he's disagreeing with things I said. It's going to seem like it's a different teaching, a different way of looking at things, and you're going to think that how can I agree with this? I know that my rabbi said the opposite, but it's not true, because really everything that I said is coherent with what he's saying, and he's adding on to what I'm saying, and he's giving a different perspective, and you should go with him. Okay, so he was telling his students that there's going to be something else which sounds different. It's not really different, and go with him. So basically, he's saying that forget everything that I said. Now, the Ari said, the Ari explained that what's the difference between the Kabbalah of the Kabbalah of the Ramak and the Kabbalah of the Ari. So the Ramak spoke about the world of divinity, the world of spirituality, in the sense of nikudot, in the sense of a linear way of understanding. That there's a certain sequence, and he spoke about the different worlds in a way that they're much like it's a more simple understanding. Now, the Ari, so he took this basic picture, this basic diagram of the world of spirituality, and he explained that it's actually 1,000 times deeper than that. It's actually much, much more complicated than that. And hello. And and he said that it's like looking something under a microscope. And we're talking about the Ramak, the Moshe Cordovero, that his yahrzeit was today on Wednesday. And so it's basically you think that you get it. You think that this is a tissue, and then really, you look under a microscope and you see that no, it's really there's really molecules, and then you say, well, actually, it's really deeper than that. Really, it's not just molecules; it's really atoms, and really, it's not just atoms; it's really subatomic particles, and that's what the Ari was really explaining, fleshing out that it's much more complicated than anything that the Ramak was saying. So the Ramak was it's like the difference between learning Newtonian physics or quantum physics. That there's a certain basic way of looking at the world, but the truth is that it's a simplified way of looking at it. Now, if you wouldn't have had the simplified way, then you never would have gotten to the deeper way. So, without Newton, we would never get to quantum physics. So, without the Ramak, we would never have gotten to the Kabbalah of the Arizal. But at the end of the day, so where we never learn the Kabbalah of the Ramak, so he's just like this unknown character that goes through history, not spoken about. He's a person we know he exists, but in terms of his greatest contribution to the world. By the way, he was unique in the fact that he was not only a Kabbalist, he was one of the biggest halacha authorities. He was one of the 4 people that got smicha from the Mahari Berev. Okay? And this is a whole revolutionary controversy during the times of the Shulchan Aruch, that they wanted to reenact the concept of getting smicha, because really smicha, when we say smicha, when it's if a rabbi has smicha, so it's really a borrowed term. The real smicha is that it needs to be an unbroken chain from Moshe Rabbeinu, and that unbroken chain was lost. During the post Second Temple, so it became against Roman law to give smicha. So it was if you would give smicha, you would be killed, and it was it just stopped. It just died out. But there's an interesting idea from the Rambam that if all the leaders of Israel would agree on somebody to give them smicha, so then you can reenact smicha. And so the Mahari Berev, based on this Rambam, so he gave smicha to 4 people. Okay, one of them was the most famous of which is Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Shulchan Aruch, So he had smicha, and the Ramak also got smicha, and also the sefer called the Mabit, and also the sefer Hasidim, the sefer Charidim. I'm sorry, they're all Tzfat rabbis, and so he was one of these the four rabbis that was able to get smicha, which means that his knowledge of the Torah in all of its aspects was really unparalleled. So the thing that he wrote like in all of these books. So one of the things that he writes about is that he said he has a book called Sefer HaGerushim. Okay, Gerushim literally, like nowadays it means divorce, but that wasn't what it meant at all. That he writes that he learned Kabbalah from a famous rabbi named Shlomo Alkavetz, who's also, by the way, buried in that same complex right next to the Rizal and the Ramak. So he's like literally right there. He was his chavruta, and he thought so highly of him that he thought he would be a good shidduch for his sister, so they became brothers-in-law. Okay, so he writes that he would go out into the forests with Shlomo Alkavetz and the Ramak, the Moshe Cordovero. They would go into the forest, and they would like just think about psukim without any commentary, and just just the first thing that comes to mind. Just how can we explain like interesting commentaries on this without sometimes when you want to look into something, you say like you research and everything, what's been said about this, and sometimes you just want to be spontaneous, just what do I think, what's coming down to me, what do I feel in the moment. So he would do this specifically in the fields. He would run like the Gerushim because they would like to go out into the fields, like they're learning at Tzfat. There's good fields to go out there, and he also, by the way, he writes that his brother-in-law would take him to Tiyulim, to different Kivrei Tzadikim, to different Tanaim. They were buried all over the north, and and so, but he would go into the fields to have this like Ruach HaKodesh, this kind of revelation that like my intuition is giving me these new ideas, and that's how he was able to be his most creative, just by having these thoughts come down, and that's how he wrote this. That's how he wrote this book. Now, perhaps the most famous book that we know him for, even though it wasn't necessarily his greatest life accomplishment, is a book called Tomer Dvara. So Tomer Dvara. Right?
We talk about Moshe Cordovero?
Mm-hmm.
Ramak is Moshe Cordovero?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know. It's the same person.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So what's the Tomer Dvara? Tomer Dvara is a book on midot. It's a book on being compassionate, being patient, and it's based on the 13 midot harachamim, okay, the 13 attributes of mercy that Hashem is the most compassionate, Hashem is the most merciful, and Hashem is the most kind. And so we praise Hashem the fact that He is the nicest and the most forgiving, and so Moshe Cordovero, when he writes this book, he says that the greatest way to invoke Hashem's mercy is to be like Him. Meaning that there's a mitzvah in the Torah, v'halachta b'derech, that you should emulate God. So the best way to bring out Hashem's mercy, Hashem's compassion, Hashem's kindness. So if you want Hashem to act like this way to you, so the way to do it is to actualize it in this world. Okay, it's he actually writes this. He reads this into the words of the Gemara, that the Gemara says that when Hashem revealed 13 attributes of mercy to Moshe Rabbeinu, so He told them that whenever you're in trouble, whenever you need my help, so I'm going to give you this secret formula called the Yud Gimel Midot HaRachamim. Im atem osim lefanai keseder hazeh, then I will always forgive you. If you do before me like this order, then I will always forgive you. So the Ramak Kadavera writes, so what's it mean? Imatem osim kaseder hazeh. What's it mean if you do this order? It doesn't say if you say this order, like ad slichot. So we're always like saying that you're giving me but that's not actually what it says. It says imatem osim kaseder hazeh. If you do the seder, so what does that mean? That it's not enough to say it; you have to be it. Okay, meaning that basically that Hashem treats us tit for tat. That if you want God to be a forgiving person, then you should be a forgiving person. If you want God to be a kind person, to be a kind God, then you should be a kind person. And this is like the best way to bring. This is the best way to bring God into the world is to emulate Him, to follow in His attributes, and that's how you bring Hashem's compassion, Hashem's forgiveness. So it's really this is based on a chazal. It says that Hashem tzilcha ad yad yaminecha. So Hashem is like your shadow. Hashem is like your shadow. That your shadow does the same as you. So if you are going to act in this way, so Hashem is going to follow suit with you. If you're going to be, there's a very fascinating Gemara that says that there's a difference between Rebbe Lazar and Rabbi Kiva. That it says that there was a certain drought, and Rebbe Lazar, so he davened before Hashem, and he wasn't answered. And then Rabbi Kiva davened before Hashem, and he was answered. And the Gemara says as follows: "V'lo mipnei shazu gadol mizu," not because this one is greater than this one. Ela mipnei shazu ma'avir amidotav v'za eina ma'avir amidotav. That Rabbi Kiva has the quality that he's not so what's the word? He's not so by the rules. He's not so careful on his honor. Like he was like, if somebody would just completely insult Rebbe Kiva, he would just laugh and say, "Oh, you're so cute." And Rebbe Lezer, so he would say, "Excuse me, I'm the chief rabbi, bodyguards." And so, like, he was like, and so that there was different ways of carrying themselves. That Rebbe Lezer, he was like, if you crossed him, so you're gonna pay for it. And Rebbe Kiva, if you crossed him, so like he'll just give you a hug. Okay, so that's when he's mavir midotav. That he's not careful about his honor. so the Rebbe Saslanter asks, what does it mean? Lo mipnei shezeh gadol mizoh. It's not because the Rebbe Kiva is greater than Rebbe Lazar, but it's because he's mavir midasav and he's not mavir midasav. So if he's mavir midasav, so that means that he's greater. What's it mean? What does it mean that he's not greater? So Rabbi Saslan says a very beautiful thing. And that is that the truth is that there's two ways of living. There's two personality types. There's two ways, and they're both legit. That there's two truths, so to speak. That there is a truth that says that you can't cross the chief rabbi. That's wrong. That's not the way the world is supposed to be. If you're like, this is the world of emet, the world of truth. Okay, and the world of truth. So, like, you can't do that. Like, if you're gonna cross me, so then like, I have to put up my walls. And there's another world, and that's the world of shalom, the world of peace. Okay, in the world of peace, so I'm going to just bend over backwards. If you're going to just bother me, I'll just forgive you and just walk away, and like as if nothing happened. Like I don't have an ego. It's like it's okay. Everything's good. And
they describe humble people as like reeds. Like Moshe was, when he was in the basket was made out of reeds because reeds represent humility.
Because they twist it.
Like
nice.
Instead of like a tree
Uh-huh.
or something, or like I forget where I learned this, but like there's this like stick that also grows near reeds, but since it's not flexible like a
Mhm.
reed, just one thing can knock it down and it all falls down.
Nice.
But a reed is flexible,
Mhm.
so if you knock it down, it'll just go down, but it'll come back up and down and move like that.
Amazing.
Interesting, like Moshe battles were fought by Hashem. Like Hashem was always punishing people. Moshe wasn't, no?
Moshe is interesting. Moshe he was the most humble. He had a backbone. Moshe, he knew how to stand up for himself. With Korach, he said, you know, he went against them, and it's complicated. It's complicated. Moshe was not a pushover. Moshe was not a pushover. What?
Didn't he like say if Korach was supposed to be the new leader, then like it should be him? Like, not that he really stood up for himself, but he didn't really like. He didn't stand against himself either. Like he kind of was like just neutral.
Neutral, like.
Like
If you,
he didn't say like
if
no,
you,
you're not supposed to
if
be
you're,
the leader. I'm
if,
the leader.
if you're wrong, so the earth should swallow you up. That's called being neutral.
True.
Now he was like, and they all 250 people just went up in flames, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, but
Think about it.
That was Hashem. That was Moshe.
Okay, but Moshe was the one that
That's
Moshe was the one that caused it to happen. So B'Yisrael Slanter says there's actually there's different strokes for different folks, and so Rebbe Lezer, so his soul was from Talmidei Beit Shammai, and Beit Shammai, so they were strict. They were more like by the by the rules. Like they weren't. There was no budging. There was no softness. They're very rigid. So. And there's something beautiful about being rigid, because like if you're too wobbly, so then like everything goes. Like the world is gonna look like Nachlot. So there's something nice about Emet, and that was Rebbe Lezer. Okay, so it wasn't that he wasn't supposed to be the way he was. He was supposed to be exactly the way he was. And Rebbe Kiva, he was from Beit Shammai. So his thing in life, his mission in life was to be so soft, and so that he was fulfilling his mission in life and his expression in life. So when it says what it means is that really each one was doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. But when it comes to getting Hashem to be nice to you, so if you are a person that's mavir amidatav, that even though people don't treat you properly, but you're still nice to them, so then Hashem, when he is reacting to you, so he would also say, well, you know, you guys, you weren't so nice to me, but I'll be nice to you regardless. Okay, so that's why when it comes to davening, when it comes to getting your way from Hashem, so this is basically the idea. This is basically the idea of the Talmud Devara, that the greatest way to bring Hashem's compassion, brings Hashem's kindness into the world, is to do that. Okay, so the more that we're emulating God's midot, so we're actually bringing godliness into the world. Okay, so this is the basic, the fundamental thing of Talmud Devara. He writes something very beautiful, by the way, that in his introduction to his book Talmud Devara, he writes that it's a very interesting thing that midot are not mentioned in the Torah. That what midot is like character improvement. Character improvement is not something which is talked about in the Torah.
It talked about, I guess, with Dom, like it talks about their bad character traits, right? Or like Noah, it talks about their bad character traits, right?
It talks about the fact that they were evil and sinning. Okay, it doesn't really go into details at all. It's really the Chazal's interpretation of it, which is like, I mean, you are right that they had bad character traits, but the Torah doesn't like, meaning that there's no mitzvah that you shall not get angry, you shall not be lazy, you even kinna, even jealousy. So that in the Ten Commandments it says you can't covet. It has lo tachmod, but really not coveting doesn't mean not being jealous. Lo tachmod, means that you can't do something to try to acquire what your friend has.
You can't act on jealousy.
Right. But like the prohibition of being jealous,
There's
so
something you can't even control. It's a feeling.
you can control feelings.
Okay, it's harder.
It's hard, but
Acting on jealousy.
but lo tachma means to convince your friend to sell you their book that they just bought, their dress that they just bought, their whatever they do, to act on your jealousy, to make sure that you actually get it. But the fact that in your heart you wish that you could have gotten that job that your roommate just got, okay, that's just being jealous. That it doesn't talk about in the Torah. Okay, it does talk about it in Mishle. It talks about it in other Sfarim in Tanakh. In Tehillim it talks about midah, but in the Chumash it doesn't talk about midah. Okay, and
Remember that Abraham asked Hashem if they're good people in stone,
mm-hmm.
then we'll save it. Like when he's trying to convince Hashem, he's talking about character traits, right?
that is the way Chazal understand it. But the point of the Ramak is that the Torah doesn't specify.
Yeah.
So what word does he
There's no
say?
halacha.
In the
there's a lot
Chumash,
of-
it only talks about midah as a measurement, not as a character trait.
Like there's a lot of, how do you say, bakifim, there's a lot of
References.
references describing how Sarah joked about how could we have a child at his age, and then it talks about how Hashem specifically, in the commentary we can see a lot of the way we act, we're supposed to act, and the way Hashem acts, and how we're supposed to emulate that, but there's nothing that says a
You have to
mitzvah
act
to
this way.
Right.
Yeah, there's no mitzvah.
You have to be a
for
kind person.
character
Right.
traits.
Well, I mean, kind of does say it. It says we have to be kamocha, but it doesn't say you have to be b'simcha. It doesn't. You don't have to be a happy person. You have to be an excited
different
person.
personalities and different ways of interacting with the world, which is all valid.
No,
No.
you have to be a happy person. You can't be a lazy person. You can't be an angry person. You can't be a miserly person. That's not the reason.
Or you could be a serious person who doesn't.
Yes, you can be.
it's
You can be serious.
Self is happy,
Fine.
but they don't look as happy as other people. It's all relative.
When you say it's Torah Shabbat Peh,
No, it's not even. It's already from it. It's already from it. It's first of all, it's implicit in the Chumash, even though it's not expressed, and it's explicit in Nach. Okay, but the question is that why isn't there an avera in the Torah? That it's it should get, just like you're not allowed to eat pork, you can't get angry. Why isn't it there? That's
so many people get angry.
so many people eat pork. So
No, I don't think in Israel. Anger is the one attribute that you're not allowed to ever feel. But it's very difficult, because I feel it's much easier to tell yourself, I will not eat something.
Listen to what he says. So the Ramak writes, and this is what he writes in the introduction to Torah and Devorah. So he writes that the reason why the midot is not in the Torah is because derech eretz kadma la Torah. Because derech eretz means being an upstanding individual, so it's kadma la Torah. That by definition, it needs to precede. If you're learning Torah, so then there's an assumption that you're a person who has been accepted to the Academy of Torah learners. Okay, and what is on the application to be accepted to the Academy of Torah learners? Midot. So when they're interviewing you to get into the Academy of Torah learners, so the questions are only they're not about how religious you are. They're don't worry, I'll teach you how to be religious. But in order to be accepted, you need to have good midot. You have to be a person who doesn't get angry, who forgives people, who's not lazy, a person who's not stingy, and how to be religious. That you learn in Torah. That Torah tells you how to be religious, but the Torah is not going to tell you how to have good character traits, because it's assuming that if you are learning Torah, then you need to have that already. Okay, so that's why that's how he's writing this, really, the Sefer Torah and Devorah, so to speak, as an introduction to Torah. that really that this is the only way to go into Torah. So this is this is what to us this is most famous thing. Most famous book is Talmud Dvar, which is the book on Midot. However, however, the truth is that he was. סליחה? סליחה?
המפתח של הבית כנסת, נמצא לכם?
יש לי מפתח.
המפתח של הבית כנסת, זה למישהו, היה פה זה אברך. נתנו לכם מפתח של הבית כנסת?
לא.
תודה.
So, something about him. Every time he says anything to me, he has to say it 5 times, and then he's. I don't know what.
He's trying to hear me talk about it. He's trying.
What's he trying to see if I
Will you get angry?
get angry?
Yeah.
No, I just laugh.
But I feel like many religious people, like, they didn't work on their midot. Some worked and some didn't. And I feel like
Can't be.
work on midot works, like when you learn Torah, you start working on your midot as well.
Your Torah influences when you do it?
I think so.
I mean, it could. There are people that learn Torah that don't have good midot.
There are so many people that like can misinterpret the Torah, and not everyone that studies Torah is necessarily like the best person in the world.
Yeah.
If you learn Torah properly, then it'll help you. But it's certainly possible to learn. Like, this is one of the reasons why Derech Eretz Kadmat Torah. In fact, the Vilna Gaon writes about a person that has bad midot and learns Torah, that sometimes learning Torah will make him or her worse.
Yeah, I saw it. That's why I was so surprised about what you were saying.
Like I once met this person that he was like, that he was one of the people that harassed me on Facebook Messenger, so he was a military guy, and from him I have a very bad, like, if any girl tells me that they're going out with a boy that was in the military, I say, whoa, be very, very wary, because I don't like military guys. He was in the military for 10 years. No, American. No.
Combat?
American. No, I'm only talking about American. So he was, and he was like very like being in the army. Like, you have to be very, very, very strict about all the rules, and so he, like, there was a certain like clash of personalities with my, whatever, being a little bit chill about things, and he was not so chill about things. So and he was always like very like holier than thou kind of, and telling everybody else why they're wrong, and I remember he was explaining to me how he was converting, and he was explaining to me how he came to Judaism because he proved Judaism right, and all the other he proved. It's like, well, okay, thank you very much. I'm so impressed that you think that Judaism is right. So so anyway, so with him, so he had always his personality was always to tell everybody else off, and to tell everybody else why he's right and they're wrong. And now that he's learning Torah, so now it's so much. He was like there's 3 incidents that he would like beat up one of the other guys in the yeshiva, and I wanted to get him thrown out, but it didn't work out. But when he came to Judaism, when he came to Torah, so now not only can I tell you that you're wrong and that you're completely off on life, but you know how I can prove it to you? Because God says like me, and I can. There's a Shulchan Aruch that says like you, and the Rambam says like me, and everyone says like me. So that's it. You're finished. Game over. And so so now he be even more bullying in the way that he talks to people, because like before, like at the end of the day, it was just my opinion against your opinion. So like how much can I like I can pretend that your opinion is worthless, but like I can't prove it. Now I can prove it. Now, so like with him, I always thought, like, I think you would have been a better person if you never would have found her, and
I was gonna say, who let this guy convert?
That's not for the camera, but
I think it's like either it's in Derech Hashem or it's in Chovot or Levavot that says like if someone has a tava for something like or a bad inclination in a certain area, there's always like the same attribute on the opposite side to counter it. Like for example, if someone like there are people who are bloodthirsty out there. Like it
Mhm.
exists. There's a certain tava for it.
Mhm.
It's saying if someone has such an inclination that they should be a shochet.
Right.
They should find the other side of the spectrum to engage with that part of themselves in a way that's healthy and Torah oriented. So perhaps like, there is some side of that that could be good, like someone who's rodef emet, like he's like searching for truth, actively seeking it, and wants to share it with others. So maybe he could be a teacher if he like
I think
hone it,
I think his problem is really just that he has a midot issue. So, like, I wasn't saying that he shouldn't, that he's hopeless. I was bringing him as an example of the Vilna Gaon says that this is the interpretation of the pasuk that it says Yarov kamatar likrik tizal katali mati. The pasuk says in the beginning of Hazinu that Torah is compared to water and dew. So the Vilna Gaon explains that water and dew, so they are able to cause a seed to sprout. But the plant that's going to grow out of the seed is only as good as the quality of the seed. So if you're a good seed, then when the water comes, you're going to sprout into a beautiful flower. If you're a rotten seed, so then when the water comes, you're going to sprout into a rotten fruit. Okay, so that's how he explains that if you're a person that has bad midot, so when you learn Torah, so it's going to sprout you, it's going to make you even bigger, it's going to make you alive, but it's going to make you a rotten plant. Okay, whereas if you're a refined person, so when you learn Torah, it's going to make you greater.
But I think if you learn Torah that deals with midot, and you have a bad midot, like if the person has bad midot, learns Torah just regarding midot, then they will sprout. They will be good. But the problem is focusing on halacha at that point when a person doesn't have a good midot.
Right. You got it.
Because then they become only more strict.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. Yes. Yeah.
This is what happens. Okay.
Yep. Now it all makes sense.
Now it makes sense. Really makes sense.
I like watching that click happen in your brain.
So actually, the answer is to teach midot to children, and only then to teach other things, or maybe to teach a little bit of halacha, but really focus on midot as much as possible, and then.
I mean, everyone needs to learn midot. Everyone needs to learn midot. Children, adolescents, adults, senior citizens.
Of course, everyone. Like, obviously, everyone. Of course,
hospice. Everything.
I think that every mitzvah brings out a certain attribute. Like there is in every mitzvah something that is supposed to get you to increase your character trait in every way, shape, or form. Like there is a masoret for like a tradition as to how we're supposed to teach your children. We say like start with the aleph bet, like just the aleph bet. If we know the why behind it is incredibly deep. Like just the aleph bet has like it teaches us about midot, like the very like structure of it, and that's Kabbalah.
It could.
So I think it's like
if you have the right
we
teacher.
don't know the why behind what we're doing, then we get into like the logistics of halacha, which are important, but when you don't do the why with it, then it becomes like you can be very like a hard-minded person. Like, I think it's like both,
All right, so that is the book of Talmud Vara. That is certainly a great deal of what the Ramak's legacy is to us. I want to point out that actually I'll bring this in the context of what happened at the end of the Ramak's life. Okay, before the Ramak passed away, so he told his students that I'm leaving you right now, and the student that sees a pillar of fire which is accompanying me after I pass away, so whoever sees that, so that's the sign that he is supposed to be the next leader, and you should follow him. Okay, so that's what he told the students. And as at the funeral of the Ramak, which was a couple of days later, so So the Arizal was young at the time, and they were taking him to the cemetery in Tzfat, and they were ready to bury him, and he said, no, you have to keep on going because the pillar of fire is continuing to a different place. So they all realized that the Arizal, that he was able to see this pillar of fire, and so they understood from him. He didn't even know this. He wasn't a student of this. The Arizal, I think I mentioned before, the Arizal in his books, he refers to the Ramak as our teacher, and that's because he read his books, and therefore, like all of the Ari Kabbalah is based on the teachings of the Ramak, but he never actually learned from him face to face, and yet he was the one who saw this pillar of fire accompanying him on the way to his gravesite. So then they were able to, then they buried him in the right place, and that's actually where the Arizal himself actually eventually became buried, and at the funeral of the Ramak, so the Arizal gave a hesped, he gave a eulogy on the Ramak, okay, and this eulogy is very, very interesting. That he said on him a pasuk that it says in Parshat Kititze. It says in Parshat Kititze that ish ki yebo chet mishpat mavet v'humat v'talita oto al ha'etz. Okay, it seems like a very innocent pasuk. It says that a person, that when there will be a chet, literally a sin, mishpat mavet, that he deserves to be killed, v'humat, and he's killed, v'talita oto al ha'etz, and you should hang him on the tree. Okay, interesting pasuk. So really, the pasuk is coming to say that it's prohibited to leave a person on a tree because it's a chilul Hashem, because it's not dignified to the person to be hung on a tree. But the Arizal said that there's really a whole different understanding to what this pasuk is really trying to hint to, and what it means is as follows: that sometimes the word chet, so the reason why chet means sin, the definition of a sin is something which is missing. The literal translation of the word chet is something which is missing. So, because when a person sins, so he's missing his potential. Like you could have been living life to the fullest, and you're messing up. You just keep on making bad decisions, and you're lacking in your living up to your potential. So, but the literal translation of the word chet is missing. So that ish ki yebo chet mishpat mavet, if he is lacking a mishpat mavet, a justification for his death, v'humat, and nevertheless he dies, v'talita ota, you should explain his death by pointing it to the eitz. To which eitz? The eitz hadat, the tree of knowledge. Meaning that when Adam...
We don't believe in original sin.
I'm not sure what you mean. There was eternal ramification, not eternal, but there was long-term ramifications of the sin.
Death was introduced because of the tree.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, because that was the punishment that God said.
The punishment for all mankind, that death came into the world. That meaning because we are descendants of Adam and Eve, and they brought some reality into themselves, that they changed from being eternal beings to finite mortal beings. So they gave their mortality in their DNA to their kids, right? And this is going to be for how long?
Forever.
Not forever.
Oh, Mashiach.
Nope. No, Mashiach, we're still going to die.
Until resurrection of the dead.
Until resurrection of the dead.
And then we don't die anymore.
Then you never die.
And we get younger?
Of course.
Somebody told me all of us will be 20 years old.
That
Yeah,
you
that's
stay,
true.
like, that you look the same age.
No, but somebody is 100, they stay 100. Come on now.
That's what
Someone
I
who died at the age of 100, did they come back like a 20-year-old? Or did they come back right when they died?
I heard that they came back.
I think they give you a menu. You get
What if
to
someone died
decide.
as a 5-year-old?
You were like, you're going we change you.
Yeah.
What if someone,
I always wanted to be a redhead. You know?
what if someone was a miscarriage? Would they come back to life or they didn't
No,
count?
what I heard is that like it's the state that you were at the best, at your best, like the age that you were at your best. It's the form that you stay in.
What
So,
about
like, I don't know
miscarriage?
if that's
You mean the fetus. You
That's-
we
you
don't know if the
you
fetus
believe.
is alive.
Or like say it was like 8 months, and
But your
the
soul
mom
is
suffered a
included.
trauma, and then it was a miscarriage. Would they come back to life?
Your soul is
Probably.
good, so it's not that every single person. You might not come back to life. Your soul might come back in a different body.
Well, it's not.
Oh,
It's
one of the
It's-
reincarnations.
it's not so simple like that. It's like she'll also come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll also come back. You're gonna have lots of like soul sisters,
Interesting.
like all of the.
Identical
like,
twins.
like twins.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, twins in
Soul
no,
sisters,
no.
but
Soul
what?
sisters like
Same soul.
like connected soul, connected soul, just different body.
Mm. And we will recognize each other. Who says that?
Hmm?
Who says that?
The Derech Hashem.
So King Shlomo, David, and Melech, they will be all resurrected.
For sure. So this is
What's
so.
the point of all that?
Of what?
Resurrecting the dead.
Lots of people. How will we feed them? Like, I don't know. I
There
wonder,
are
like,
too many people
How do we
right now.
end world hunger, Rabbi?
how we will build buildings for them, or
Okay.
they will not
Okay.
eat?
You have not been in Islam
Well,
long
They
enough.
will eat.
If you don't know, okay, who knows what's always the correct answer with any question that's asked in seminary?
I don't know.
Another question.
Hashem. Mhm. Okay, so don't worry, Hashem will take care of them. He can do more impressive things than end world hunger. Okay, we can talk about the purpose of Tchias Mesim after class maybe. Okay, this is beyond the scope of this class. So I want to explain that this hesped was brought down in the Sefer of the Chida. The Chida that wrote the different biographies of different Rabbanim, and he quotes this eulogy that the Rizal gave about the Ramak, and what this eulogy was that he was saying that the Ramak had no justification to die. He was such a holy man. He never did a sin in his life that it was completely unjustified that he should die, and the only reason that it made sense for him to die is simply because he's coming from the DNA of Adam and Eve. Okay, so
Oh, he died at 120?
no, so the Lubavitch Rebbe has he has a sicha. We talked about this hesped, and he talks about the fact that there's a Gemara that talks about four people in history that died without a sin, and it uses a little bit of a different wording, that they died because of the advice of the snake. Okay, which seems to be a reference to the same thing. And these were the Yishai, the father of David, Amram, the father of Moshe, Kilav, the son of David, and who's the fourth one? Binyamin, the son of Yaakov. Okay, so this,
Like, what do we know of Kila?
I know what he didn't do.
Okay.
Didn't do any sense.
Okay.
Okay. No, the truth is that on all four of these people, we don't know anything about them.
Really?
Yeah, they're
We're such tzaddikim that we don't know
which not it really basically, if you want to do something in this world,
You have to take risks.
you're gonna mess up. So these people that were such perfect people that they never did anything wrong.
You also
So
never did anything.
what?
Yeah.
They couldn't do anything.
So no, it's not. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a very holy thing to never do anything wrong. But they aren't our heroes. Okay. Okay. Now, and he was saying that the Ramak was similar to that. In the fact that there was no justification of his, and so what's really interesting about the Ramak's personality is that like what I started the class is that nobody learns Ramak. Like in terms of the Ramak's main life goal was to bring Kabbalah into the world. So the everyone learns the Rizal's Kabbalah. Nobody learns the Ramak's Kabbalah, and this I think like puts them in the same category as these people like Yishai and Amram, that they were just so holy that like the world wasn't worthy of having them present in like that. They were bringing something that wasn't for us even, and the purpose of his wisdom was that he should inspire others. But like he wasn't the kind of person that was going to be like to have lots of stories about him, about how he helped people in the street and how he was wise and how he was like, his thing was simply to bring down the secrets of creation out into the world, and nobody's going to talk about him. Obviously, he's going to be. There's an interesting Gemara that says that kol hamoser nafsho al divrei Torah ein omim davar mishmo. A person risks his life for Torah, so we don't say the Torah in his name. Okay, it's an interesting statement. The Gemara in Bava Kama. So I saw a very interesting interpretation of this, that sometimes a person is part of the Torah conversation, right? Like this is I think we all aspire to be part of the conversation. Like when we when we learn, we don't like to just be passive and just be just like yes sir kind of people. We like to ask a question and give an answer, and that our ideas should also be incorporated into the Torah, right? Now, obviously, like not everything is actually. Like, sometimes, like we ask dumb questions, and like that's why we learn, like trial and error. Like sometimes a question is just not a question, but after a while, then you start to filter out what are the bad questions or what are the good questions, and then I remember it's very etched into my memory. Like I was 13 years old, like the first time that I said something to my rabbi that was right. It was like I was like jumping for joy. Like finally, it was like so So we all aspire to be part of the conversation, right? So, but sometimes that if we're part of the conversation, so then there could be a little bit of ego in that, right? That it's you with your thoughts and your ideas that you became part of the conversation. So what the Gemara is saying is that kol hamoser nafsho al divrei Torah, person gives up, risks his life for Torah. So then ein omim divrei Torah bishmo, that we don't say the Torah in his name, but rather what? It becomes just like obvious. It becomes something that is just so mainstream, so completely accepted that it's not according to so and so. This is the exclamation. According to, it's like that. Like it becomes so much part and parcel of what the Torah is that your name isn't part of it anymore. Okay, which really it takes away from your ego. Like if you're learning Torah because you want everybody to say, "Whoa, did you hear about that great rabbi in Kansas City?" But if he really cares about Torah, so then he shouldn't care about his own ego. He should care about the fact that he actually brought a new level of inspiration into the world, and it's so great that it becomes the standard exclamation. That's amazing. He changed the way the world looks at this person in the Torah. Yeah, that's really making a difference in the world. So it's by definition a greater difference than anything that you could have said in your name. Right?
Do we know about other books? He wrote many books.
The Ramak? Yeah. Many, but most of them are Kabbalistic.
So we wouldn't understand like
Nachon.
on our level.
Correct.
It will be understood only by like people who really know Kabbalah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And people read these books?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, it's already getting late, so I did want to speak about Rav Yashiv. The truth is that it's okay if we don't speak about Rav Yashiv, because you could say most of Rav Yashiv's life is really not so relevant to us. Rav Yashiv's thing was that he didn't stop learning. Okay, he was a very, very unique personality in the fact that he only loved learning. He was antisocial. He hated the spotlight. He hated the fact that so many people were bothering him. He didn't like fanfare. He didn't like the paparazzi. He really just wanted to be for like he's also unique in the fact that he passed away in the age of 103. Okay, he only became famous at the age of like 85. Okay, meaning for 85 years he was literally just learning 16 hours a day in an attic with no social interaction. Okay, and from 85, so suddenly, like hundreds of thousands of people are caring about what he says, and they're trying to get his autograph and trying to.
How did they know about him?
Mhm. So Rav Shach made him the next leader of the Jewish people, meaning that when Rav Shach passed away, he basically forced him to become the next leader of Israeli Jewry.
How
So-
Rav Shach knew about him?
Well, Shach knew about him because like he wasn't like unknown, but he just wasn't.
unknown.
But he wasn't just popular. He wasn't a celebrity.
Oh,
Okay, so there's lots. So there really like there is a lot to say about that. I had the privilege of that he was the sandik for my fourth son's, for Yishai, this bar mitzvah son, that for his bris. So for his bris, so he was the bris was by Rav Yashiv. It's one of the last brises that he did. He had an interesting thing that in around 2002, so he had a very, very serious open heart surgery, and like the entire Israel and the entire Haredi world probably like stopped everything to daven profusely for his recovery, for the success of the surgery, and it was very successful. And from that time, from after he recovered from that surgery, he felt a obligation of appreciation to the Jewish people. So he gave much more of his time to help other people. And from that time, so he started having. He agreed to be sandik, if you wanted him to be present at the bris, he would, anybody who wanted. So he would have 2 brises a day, 2 brises, maybe sometimes even more. Sometimes even more. That he would just like one after the other. That you wanted to like that he put aside an hour of a day that he was going to be the sandik for people's brises. So I was one of those lucky people that got to have that. But he was naturally he hated it. He hated like which is so like it's so not like I think everybody here like someplace inside of them like would like to be like a superstar, right? And like for him it was just completely opposite. It was so there is a lot to say about him, but I think most of his life was very simply just sitting by a Gemara 18 hours a day. Maybe he was crazy lack of sleep. He would go to sleep at 11 o'clock every night and wake up at 2. Later in life, I think in his early 80s, so the doctor told him that he needs more sleep, so he started getting up at 3. Okay, so he was a person who was constantly pushing himself. So he was. That's amazing. It really is amazing because how much he pushed himself and how much he was out of this world. But I want to tell you a different story, and that is the story of his birth. Okay, and because this is something that I think is it has an interesting takeaway for us. And that is like this. So his grandfather was a famous Kabbalist named Rav Shlomo Elyashiv. Okay, interestingly, it's his mother's father. So his mother, he became Rav Elyashiv. Actually, really, his name was not Rav Elyashiv. I forgot what his father's name was, but when they came to Israel, so they came. His father immigrated to Israel. Rav Yashiv's father immigrated to Israel with his wife and his father-in-law and his son and Rav Yashiv. Okay, so they moved together, and so but in order, the only way that they could immigrate was if they would have the same name. If they would have the same family, then they could get a family visa. And then so Rav Kook he advised them to just change the name to Eliashiv. That's actually how they named the Yashiv. That's how we got the name Eliashiv. So Yashiv is really his grandfather from his mother's side. So the grandfather was known as the Leshem. The Leshem, he was a great Ashkenazi Kabbalist, and he's considered one of the deepest Kabbalistic works out there. So that's Rav Shlomo Eliashiv. So his daughter had been married for almost 20 years, and they didn't have children. And she was going to treatment after treatment after treatment, and doctor after doctor after doctor, and it's going very, very difficult. Finally, she finally decided she's going to give it one last try, and she heard about this amazing doctor in Vienna, and she decides, like, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna make a journey to Vienna, and maybe he'll be able to save me. And so she goes, and she gets checked out, and the doctor tells her that like, you are hopeless. That you don't have what it takes. I'm sorry. Like, you cannot have a child. I don't know why anybody tells you that you can come to me, and like, there's any chance in the world that I can help you. Like, sorry, girl. This is like, you weren't meant to have kids. And she comes home after like another week of traveling, and she's just so broken, and she's like really sad. And so her father, her father was living with her, and so that's the Leshem, Shlomo Yashiv. So he goes to her, and he says, "What's wrong?" And she says, "Nothing. It's okay." He said, "No. Tell me what's wrong." So she tells him, I just went to the doctor, and I decided, like, he's supposed to be the best doctor in the entire Europe, and he tells me that, like, I can't have kids." And he says to her, so you forgot that there's a God? You forgot that there's a God? That you can always daven. He thinks the doctor decides. So she's like, well, like, she took that as like a reality check, and she goes to the room, and she starts davening like she's never davened before. And 45 minutes later, so he opens the door, and he says, "Enough. You did what you needed to do." And sure enough, 9 months later, so Rav Yashiv, their one and only child, was born. Okay, and what's really crazy about the story is that Rav Yashiv, so we said before that he passed away at the age of 103, and in his community, so they got married very young. He himself had 12 kids, and all of his kids had like lots and lots of kids, and before he passed away, he saw 6 generations. Okay, meaning that he saw his like his grandkids is the 2nd generation, so his great-grands is 3 generations, great is whatever. Figure it out. See, he saw the 6th, and he like, it was funny because there's a halacha about the 6th generation. The 6th generation is not considered your relative anymore. You know this?
It sounds very familiar.
So he was like, you know, like there's a halacha that you're not allowed to be a witness for your relative. So if it's 6 generations, you're not considered a relative. So he could be a witness at his great grandchild's wedding. It would be funny. So, but that's not my point. The point is, because he was able to have 6 generations, and he had 12 kids, and all of his kids had lots of kids. Before he passed away, he had over 1,000 descendants.
No.
Not possible.
That's crazy.
Simple mathematics.
Yeah.
Oh.
10 times 10.
10 times 10. It could have been much more, but
Oh, like they were non-stop having kids. Okay.
Like he had 10.
he had 12 kids. If each of his kids had
They were
10
married,
kids,
like,
then
early,
that's
How
what's
big
funny.
their family photo is.
That's crazy.
Like
So-
they need to get a
Drone.
Drones.
Yes.
Just to talk to his great grandchildren.
So I promise you, I did not know all the names. Okay. So but the point is that this really it gives you a perspective of what it means that every single person is like an entire world. That when his mother was davening for him, so she was thinking, I just want one kid, I just want one child.
Oh,
and
that was his mother.
yeah.
Oh
So
my goodness.
like when it says that kol mekayem nefesh achat miyisrael kilu kiyem olam maleh, that like every person is like an entire world. So like he really he really embodies this, that think about it, like we could theoretically see in our lifetime 1,000 people coming from us. So like and everybody that you're bringing into the world, like everybody that that we ever interact with. So like you're 1,000 people, you're 1,000 people, you're 1,000 people, and like so it's really it really gives you a new perspective on the power, the potential of a human being. Okay, and it's all from one prayer, one prayer. Mm-hmm. All right, so l'chaim everybody. We should have a big inspiration.